Who let the janitor in here?" The words sliced through the lavish law office like a blade, sharp, cold, and laced with arrogance. Brielle Johnson stood quietly in the doorway. 17 years old, deep brown skin, natural curls tied neatly at the nape of her neck. Her hands gently gripped the strap of a worn canvas bag. Her white shirt had faded with time. Her shoes, flattened from endless walking. But her eyes, calm, deep, unwavering, made even the smug faces in the room falter. The Whitman family was all there, wealthy, powerful, polished in designer suits and gleaming watches, wearing the kind of stares that judged before asking a single question. Victor Whitman, heir to the empire, smirked with disdain. Christina Whitman, his aunt, looked at Brielle like she was a stain on an expensive rug. "Probably here to beg for money," she whispered. "How tragic." Brielle said nothing. She stepped inside, quietly, yet with unmistakable self-possession. Then, like a sudden chord in a silent symphony, attorney Marcus Green, executor of the late Jonathan Whitman's will, spoke clearly. "Miss Brielle Johnson, please, have a seat beside me." The room froze, as if someone had cut the sound. No one in that room knew that the girl they dismissed was about to rewrite the entire story. Attorney Marcus Green didn't let the silence linger. With a calm hand, he adjusted his glasses and spoke, clear, steady. "This is Brielle Johnson, daughter of Mrs. Lillian Johnson, the woman who served the Whitman family for 22 years. It was like someone flipped a switch and shocked the entire room. Christina's grip tightened on the armrest. "The maid?" She spat the word like it was a stain on her tongue. Victor leaned back in his chair, smirking. "So, straight from the supply closet to the inheritance table, huh?" But Marcus didn't flinch. His voice cut through the tension like steel. "Brielle isn't here out of pity. She's here because she was explicitly named in the last will and testament of Mr. Jonathan Whitman." All eyes snapped to Brielle. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. She just sat, spine straight, gaze unwavering. The chair beside Marcus, the seat reserved only for heirs or senior counsel, now belonged to the girl none of them ever thought to notice. But what no one knew was that in the quiet, fading months of his life, Jonathan Whitman had been watching the girl who silently cleaned the family's private library, but always paused to read a book, watching the teenager who cared for her ailing mother, and still found time to secretly study business and law online, watching the heart that stayed kind, while the rest of his family played games of power and pretense. Jonathan saw what the others refused to see. That worth isn't written in bloodlines. It's revealed in character. No one said a word as Marcus Green pressed play. The room darkened, and on the screen appeared the face of an aging man, sharp-eyed, despite the frailty in his voice. Jonathan Whitman, founder of Whitman and Company. His presence, even on video, commanded the room. "If you're watching this, it means I'm no longer here," he began, voice steady but cold. "And I know exactly what you're all wondering. How much did I leave, and who got what?" Not a sound, not a breath. "But before the will is read, I have one question for all of you." His eyes narrowed, as if he could see right through them. "Can anyone here tell me the name of Lillian's daughter, the woman who cleaned this house for over 20 years? A silence so heavy, it felt like the walls were closing in. Christina glanced nervously at Victor. Victor shifted, then looked to Ricardo. Heads turned, shoulders shrugged, eyes dropped. No one answered. "I thought so," Jonathan said, voice bitter with disappointment. "None of you remembered. None of you even asked. You called her the girl, or the little maid, like she was invisible, like she didn't dream, like she didn't matter. But I saw her. The screen shifted. Images of Brielle quietly organizing books in the family library, feeding her sick mother at a hospital, reading law books in the quiet hours between her cleaning shifts. I chose Brielle, not because she's pitiful, but because she is powerful. In all my years, no one has made me prouder than that. But the silence in the room stayed, dense, suffocating, final. One video, one truth, and the carefully polished mask of the Whitman family, shattered. Attorney Marcus Green carefully broke the red wax seal on the thick envelope. Every eye followed his hands. Every breath in the room held. Per the wishes of Mr. Jonathan Whitman, he began, voice clear, deliberate. The official reading of the will is as follows. He looked up, right at Brielle, then read aloud. I, Jonathan Whitman, leave 51% of my shares in Whitmore Holdings, the River Valley Estate, and 4 real estate properties valued at over $20 million. To the only young woman who ever made me believe that kindness still exists in this world, Miss Brielle Johnson. The room erupted, not with joy, but with sheer, unfiltered shock. Ricardo shot to his feet, yelling, "This isn't legal. That girl manipulated him. This is fraud." Christina grabbed his arm, pale and trembling. Victor collapsed into his chair, as if the weight of truth had just crushed him. But Marcus remained steady. Brielle declined at first, he said calmly. It was Jonathan who begged her to accept. The entire process was recorded, with medical, psychological, and legal oversight. Every document is notarized, every word accounted for. Brielle lowered her head, her hands clenched in her lap, not from joy, but to keep the tears from falling. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the maid's daughter. She was the woman holding the future of an empire in her hands. There's one more video, Marcus said quietly, inserting a small USB drive into the screen behind him. Per Jonathan's special request, this video is only to be played if the legality of the will is ever questioned. Ricardo scoffed. What kind of stunt is this now? But the moment the screen lit up, the room fell dead silent. Grainy footage from a hidden camera filled the screen. Victor, screaming at the gardener over a bit of dust on his car. "Do you even know who I am?" Then came Christina, firing a housekeeper for accidentally dropping a wine glass. "People like you belong on your knees, scrubbing floors." Next, Ricardo, hurling a report at an assistant's face. "You're worthless," he barked. The report had been 3 minutes late. No one said a word. The very actions they thought were done in private were now displayed in brutal clarity for everyone to see. For years, Jonathan had been recording them, a silent witness to how power had rotted the core of his own bloodline. Marcus turned to face the room. He didn't leave Brielle the empire out of pity. He left it to her, because she was the only one who didn't need power to treat people with decency. Christina turned away, her face tight with shame. Ricardo bowed his head. Victor stood up and walked out without a word. The legacy of the Whitman name shattered, frame by damning frame. The room was still heavy, thick with the weight of truth after the video laid bare the true face of the Whitman family. Brielle stood. Her voice wasn't loud, but it stopped every whisper cold. "I didn't come here to take over," she said, steady. "I came to rebuild what you, all of you, have rotted from the inside out." Gasps filled the room as she placed a folder gently on the table. "This," she said, "is the new board of directors for Whitmore Holdings." Marcus opened the file. His voice was low, firm, resolute as he read the names aloud. Angela Freeman, former head of HR, fired for proposing employee protection policies. Jamal Carter, IT specialist, let go after presenting a plan to boost productivity without laying anyone off. Linda Park, marketing manager, terminated for refusing to sign off on a fraudulent contract. The Whitman family stared in disbelief. Christina blurted out, "These people? They used to work for us." "No," Brielle replied, calm but unwavering. "They worked for this company, and now they're going to rebuild it with integrity." Outside the glass doors, reporters had already begun filming what would soon become a headline no one saw coming. That day, Whitmore Holdings didn't just get a new heir, it got a new heart. A few days after the explosive transfer of power, Brielle stepped onto a press conference stage. But this time, not as the unexpected heir. This time she stood as a leader, by choice, by purpose, by vision. Behind her, a large screen lit up, displaying a map of the city. Dozens of red dots blinked across it. Each dot marked a property Whitmore Holdings had quietly acquired over the years, often from poor families, through legal manipulation or ruthless underpricing. "I'm not keeping a single one of these properties," Brielle said, her voice firm, her eyes unwavering. "I've signed the transfer papers. Every plot returned free of charge to the rightful owners who should have never lost them in the first place." A woman wiped away tears and whispered, "That's the house my grandfather built with his own hands." But Brielle wasn't finished. "I'm not seeking revenge," she said softly. "I'm restoring justice, what someone else stole long ago." Moments later, Whitmore Holdings announced a sweeping new initiative, the Workforce Reintegration Program. Free legal support for wrongfully terminated employees, job reinstatements, and compensation for past damages. The media dubbed it the first ethical overhaul in corporate history. And leading it all was a young woman they once dismissed as just the janitor. After the storm of the power shift, Brielle Johnson didn't choose a cold leather chair in a corner office. She chose to begin where the world had once looked down on her, the community. Whitmore Holdings didn't just change its leadership, it changed its soul. The towering corporate headquarters, once heavily guarded and closed off, now had its ground floor transformed into a community hub. A safe space offering free classes in life skills, technology, and personal finance, specifically for Black and brown youth. At the heart of the lobby, a polished plaque gleamed with the words, "Justice doesn't start in the courtroom, it starts in the community." At the same time, Brielle announced the launch of the Justice Circle, a $10 million fund dedicated to supporting education, healthcare, and job training programs for historically underserved communities. "We're not just rebuilding a company," she said. "We're redesigning a system, one where no one is invisible." Every day, Brielle walked the halls of the company, not just shaking hands, but calling every employee by name. Something no Whitman in generations had ever done. One janitor, tears in his eyes, whispered, "Today, after 22 years, it's the first time I've ever felt like I wasn't just a shadow." While much of the public praised the rebirth of Whitmore Holdings, not everyone welcomed the change. Ricardo Whitman, once the obvious heir, filed a lawsuit against Brielle, accusing her of manipulating the will and exploiting a dying man. But piece by piece, the truth dismantled every accusation. Meticulously prepared evidence, video messages from Jonathan himself, sworn testimonies from doctors, legal advisors, and independent witnesses. One by one, they shattered Ricardo's case. He lost the lawsuit, lost his wealth, and lost the last remnants of his legacy. Now, he lives quietly in a small rented apartment. But Brielle never spoke of him with bitterness, only with sorrow for a man who refused to learn the lessons of his time. Then, there was Patricia, the influencer who once mocked Brielle online. Within 48 hours, she lost her sponsorships, her followers, and the illusion that cruelty comes without consequence. And yet, when she showed up at the company gates, eyes swollen, voice trembling, Brielle didn't turn her away. "I don't need you to bow," she said gently. "I need you to stand and relearn how to treat people with dignity." Patricia became the first participant in the Relearn project, a reintegration program designed to teach what society should have never forgotten: how to listen, how to empathize, how to make things right. Brielle never chose revenge. She chose to open a door so that even those who once denied humanity might find their way back to it. During a nationally televised roundtable discussion, Dr. Rachel Monroe, a sociologist from Columbia University, delivered a statement that left the entire studio in absolute silence. "This is not a story about the poor rising up against the rich," she said. "This is a historic moment where compassion, not anger, defeated privilege." Dr. Monroe continued, "Brielle Johnson didn't come to take over. She didn't use her new power for revenge. She didn't imprison. She liberated. She didn't overthrow. She redefined." In a world where power often speaks the loudest, Brielle proved that real power isn't measured by the height of the chair, but by how we treat those who have none. Dr. Monroe's closing words echoed with weight. She didn't shatter the Whitman empire with force or fury. She simply held up a very large mirror and let them see themselves for the first time. That day, from academia to boardrooms, one truth became undeniable. Brielle Johnson wasn't just an heir. She was the face of a new kind of leadership, where power is rooted in wisdom, compassion, and an unwavering belief in justice. Just 1 year later, Whitmore Holdings, a corporation once synonymous with exclusivity and entitlement, had done the unthinkable: a 12% revenue increase, driven by one simple shift: empowering the very people it once left out. Under the leadership of its new board, every decision was guided by one principle: people before profit. And then, Circle, founded by Brielle, awarded scholarships, provided medical care, and helped over 600 families reintegrate into society. Families once displaced by Whitmore's past discriminatory policies. The company's headquarters no longer resembled a cold fortress of the elite. Its walls now displayed paintings by black and brown artists, talents once dismissed simply because they didn't belong in that world. A special hallway was renamed the Hall of Dignity. Framed portraits of long overlooked workers lined the walls. The gatekeeper, the head cook, the janitor. Once invisible, they were now honored as the very soul of the company's transformation. Whitmore Holdings wasn't just revived, it was reborn, by the hands that had once been pushed to the margins. At just 17 years old, an age when most are still unsure of who they are, Brielle Johnson had already become a symbol of historic transformation. She kept her old routine: mornings at school, afternoons caring for her mother, Lillian, who once spent 2 decades cleaning the Whitman estate. Only after dinner did Brielle sit at the boardroom table, leading a company worth hundreds of millions. And yet, what earned her the deepest respect wasn't the wealth she managed, but the person she never stopped being. When a reporter once asked her, "Why didn't you destroy the Whitman family, the very people who once treated you like a shadow?" Brielle simply smiled, her eyes calm, unwavering. "Because I don't want to switch roles with the oppressor," she said. "I want to change the game entirely." To her, Justice didn't mean tearing things down. It meant rebuilding the system from within. A system where every person, regardless of color or class, is seen, heard, and given a chance. And in the very room that once labeled her an outsider, Brielle sparked a revolution, quiet but irreversible. 1 year after the will that shook a dynasty was read aloud, Whitmore Holdings was no longer a symbol of privilege, but a living testament to what rebirth, through justice and compassion, could look like. Inside the grand hall of the company's new headquarters, now transformed into a community center, Brielle Johnson stood at the podium. The spotlight fell on her face, 17 years old, once turned away from this very building, because she was just the maid's daughter. But today, the seats before her were filled with familiar faces. Familiar, but changed. Patricia, who once posted a racist smear campaign, now a volunteer in the company's education program. Victor, who once called her the janitor, now an assistant in the legal department, learning the meaning of respect from scratch. And Ricardo, wearing the soft blue uniform of the company's reintegration program, sat quietly in the back, his once arrogant gaze replaced with something heavier, the weight of hard-earned lessons. Brielle took a slow breath. Then she spoke, softly, but every word carved itself into the room. Back then, they didn't remember my name because they thought I didn't matter. But today, I'm the one who made their empire bow before the truth. The room fell into absolute silence, and in that stillness, it was clear. This wasn't just the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new history.